This is a dead external SCSI hard drive, and it's part of a SCSI quest I've been on recently, mostly because of this keyboard that I've previously mentioned. This is a Roland W30 music workstation. It's a keyboard. It makes sound when you provide storage with sound, and of course it has a floppy drive built in, and since I'm talking about it, it obviously supports SCSI as well. Now, I'm not going to get too much into this thing because it is a very deep rabbit hole, and eventually it'll get its own fully dedicated video. But the thing you need to know the most about it is that that floppy drive that seems somewhat convenient on the face is actually double density and a complete nightmare to get disks made for, so you really want to get away from that thing as quickly as possible. Now, even the cat says that I should probably just install a Gotek in here. I mean, that makes sense. It's pretty affordable. I think I paid $12 for that thing, and that would work very well and solve all of my difficulties of transferring data onto here. But I don't want that in here. Why would I want to spend $12 on that when I could instead spend $100 on one of these? Oh, yeah. That's what we're doing today. Now, the thing that finally led me to determine that this was non-functional is when I was testing it with the keyboard, because thankfully a while ago I was sent a 200 megabyte cartridge for my SciQuest drive, and this thing is really complicated because it uses a platter cartridge that you install into the drive and then press in and lock in place, and it's a 5¼ inch size hard drive, and this thing is loud when running, but it does actually work, unlike this, and that is what finally showed me that the Roland was working. Now, I really need something to work with the Roland, but I also need something that I can use with other devices, and formatting this one SciQuest cartridge that I have over and over again to work with other computers and devices is not really gonna be great. So I finally decided to pony up and buy that adapter. This is a SCSI2SD 2020 revision from Inertial Computing. Yeah, it was a really long lead up. Let's just roll the intro. Kat, you gonna hang around or you gonna leave? Now, what exactly is the SCSI2SD, and what is it good for? It is an internal hardware SCSI emulator that uses an SD card for storage to allow you to create virtual drives of different types. Its primary use is for replacing internal hard drives, which use the 50-pin ribbon cable connector. Unfortunately though, the SCSI2SD V6 commits the most egregious sin I have to deal with over and over again when it comes to hard drive adapters of replacing the Molex power connector with a floppy or Burge kind. Just why? It's not helping anyone. I don't understand. It's so frustrating. Just go. Alright, they do make other versions with different connectors made specifically for keyboards like mine that plugs directly into the SCSI port and saps power from the signal termination. The V6 version I have here has a few different features compared to the older versions that are notable. The USB port can be used to not only configure the settings of the device, but also access data on the SD card. I'll get into more on why you would and would not want to use this later. The SCSI2SD can also emulate multiple virtual drives at the same time with different SCSI IDs. The V6 version can max out the SCSI bus at up to 7 drives with mixed types. Also new to the V6 version, the virtual drive configuration is stored on the SD card instead of the adapter itself, but I'll get more into that later as well. Some of these new features are what finally pushed me over into getting one of these, but that in combination with the dead external drive gave me the perfect use. I'm going to put it inside the external enclosure to build the ultimate SCSI emulator. Now, I did actually know this was dead for a while, and I've been eyeing one of these with the potential of putting one in here, but there's been a couple of things that have kept me from doing it. One is that they obviously use an SD card for storage. That's not a problem. I actually really like that. SD cards are very affordable compared to compact flash cards, which are so expensive. But that works out really well. The only problem is that once I mount this inside, which it'll go about there, I can't exactly get to the SD card, and this thing's really not designed to be opened all the time to extract that. Now, there are SD card extension cables. I'm not sure how great of an idea that is. Looking at the compatibility table, or feature set table, I should say, of the SD or SCSI2SD adapters, it looked like they were all using SPI mode, so probably would have been fine since it's not very fast. But the V6 added a new feature that I really like that I want to try and take advantage of. The USB port on it that's normally used to configure the firmware settings for emulating different drives and such can be used to access the data on the SD card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this micro USB extension and panel mount adapter, and I'm going to replace the SCSI ID drive selector because the ID on this is defined with software. So doing that should work pretty well. All right, let's go ahead and actually get started with this now, and let's get this open. Now, like I said, this is just some company, Microtech. They did not make the hard drive. They may have made the enclosure. I would be a little surprised if they did, but just, you know, keep aware that if someone else wants to repeat this, you're probably not going to find this exact drive enclosure, and there's really no reason to get it. Now, I did actually look before I started this video on eBay just to see how common these drive enclosures are, because I think this really isn't a bad idea overall to put a SCSI2SD adapter inside something like this. I thought these were going to be affordable. They're kind of not, though. So if you are interested in this idea after seeing it, you might want to start an eBay search for one of these that are parts, as is kind of thing, because working ones seem to sell for like at least $100. And then on top of spending $100 for the SCSI2SD adapter, that kind of hurts the wallet for something that you really need a lot of use cases for. You need a really big collection. Thankfully, I'm in that position. Well, there's pros and cons to being in that position, but thankfully I have this and can make that kind of use for it. All right, let me go ahead and fast forward here and finish opening this thing. Okay, so we have the Quantum hard drive, not Microtech like the badge says. Like I said, definitely not the same. It is connected with the 50-pin ribbon cable, like we would expect, and it has the 4-pin Molex power. Now, something else this has is this, a little header for the LED indicating activity. Now, the SCSI2SD actually has a header that we can solder pins on, and we will be doing that so that we can continue that functionality. Now, there is one thing that's not going to work out very well here, and I've been trying to think about how I want to handle this. The drive in here mounts from the underside through the holes for flat mounting our drive, and these don't line up to that, which is kind of frustrating considering it's nearly as wide as a hard drive. I kind of wish that they'd at least just made it the rest of the width and then had those holes, but I don't know. Let's pull it out and see what we can do. Maybe I can mount it with a couple of nuts or washers or something, just raise it up. But yeah, got to keep going here because I have to take out this metal plate to get to the screws on the bottom. Okay, there's one last cable going to this hard drive that I don't believe the SCSI2SD can use, which is a little disappointing, but it's not the biggest deal. This is for setting the drive ID, or in the, I should say, the SCSI ID. This goes to the up-down button here. You press this, and the ID changes. This is a really cool little thing, actually. It changes which contacts are open and closed on this connector based on the values that are in there. It's a really mechanically complicated device, probably extremely prone to failure now that I think about it. But we won't be using that. We're going to be pulling that out, actually, which would be really easy. Just push it through here. Do that in a moment. But we'll be putting the micro USB connector there. But we can see
the rest of the stuff. Oh, 1988 date code on that EEPROM sticker. So that gives you an idea of when this hard drive's from, and that also explains why it does not work, because that's a fairly early SCSI hard drive. Could also have been mechanical abuse. I don't know what the history of this was before I got it. When I had it set up and working in that Windows 98 video, it was like one take where it finally worked. And I thought I had just figured out what the drivers and other configurations were, but turned out, no, that thing's done. So that's unfortunate. Pretty sure quantum SCSI drives dying is nothing new, though, so I don't feel particularly disappointed or surprised. Somebody just wants to be in my lap. Anyway, let's continue. There are actually a lot of holes in the plate here. Might be able to mount this to some of those. That would be really, really awesome. You know, there's no reason I can't tap this and put in my own standoffs for mounting it either. I kind of like that idea. Before we start making large permanent changes like that, though, I want to get a sense of what our practical limitations are here. So let me get the drive ID selector out. There we are. Okay, that is, again, I really like this thing. It's cool. Don't know if I'll have a different use for it, but that would be fun. Okay. Now, this, I'm not 100% sure how I want to do this. Perhaps drilling holes through there to mount like that would be the best way to go. Okay, that's good to know. Let's see if it's magnetic at all. It definitely is, so it's probably steel. So, would need to drill this. That's going to be fun. Yay. I kind of like the idea of trying to tap this, though, to mount the drive adapter on here, because I think that would work out really well and allow me to put it wherever I want. How far will this cable reach if I plug it in? If I get it all the way up to the front, well, I was going to say maybe up to the front, then I can have a slot cut into it to poke the SD card out of, but that USB cable would then interfere with it. Because I may still want to mount an extension for this SD card, so I haven't decided on that yet either. Let me get some bits in my drill and see if this is in any way feasible. All right, now to test this drilling idea, I put the screws in backwards on this, and it looks like if I push this all the way to the bottom plate here, that seems to be about the right height for where that should be. So I'm going to keep this slightly above, and I'm just going to drag this across. And I got a scratch there. I did not get one down below. Just trying to get an idea of where I need to drill. Okay, there we go. I got a mark. I got two marks. Okay, I can see them in the right angle of light. See if I can use a light to highlight that here. You can easily see the top one. That bottom one's a little trickier, though, but it's there. So I'm going to go try and drill some holes in this metal, see how soft it is, and see if I can mount this in there. And then if that goes well, I'm going to go buy some tap and die sets here so I can try and make some threaded holes to mount the drive adapter itself. It did walk on me a little bit, but that is super nice. Plugging it into itself. Oh, yeah. That is solid. I'm extremely happy with that. That came out really well. Well, it's nice seeing ideas in execution. Okay. It really wasn't that difficult to drill this metal. I think I could probably tap it. So I need to decide how I want to do that. I could just use nuts to space it out rather than actually needing to tap, and then I probably could get away with something a lot easier. So maybe, I don't know. Let me look around and see what I have. The only standoffs I know I have that I could definitely 100% use with this somehow in this area are motherboard standoffs, and those would absolutely have to be tapped. So I don't necessarily want to have to use those. I kind of wish I had like really tall standoffs so that I could run the threaded portion through it and then put a nut on the bottom. That would make this way easier and I wouldn't need to thread it. Yeah, I think that'll do. So I will not be threading this metal. So this is actually a little thin. You can kind of see there, there's not a whole lot. The threads wouldn't really bite. And I noticed that all of the things that are threaded that came on this, like the fan, have either a raised portion that I imagine is like welded in or something, or these nuts that are like actual nuts that are inset in. I'm not quite sure how you do that. That's interesting. Probably just flattening and jamming it in there. But I realized I could just like get nuts and put them on the bottom because the standoffs I have here do actually stick through enough for that. So I did go ahead and get some of those. Went ahead and ordered them though, and decided to wait a day. This is the next day because I also ordered an extension that will allow me to relocate the SD card access to outside of the case. Now, wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to do this initially, but an idea kind of hit me that between the SCSI interfaces right here and the USB port right there, if this cable is wrapped around the bottom of the case and fed in, which I believe should be totally possible. Let me just lift that up here. This would really cleanly mount like that and allow me to just access the card from the top. So I'm going to put some double-sided foam tape on there, which I think is going to hold it on, and do that. So I think that'll work, but that's kind of a last stage assembly step here. For this though, that's what's next. I just put that standoff through an existing hole. I went ahead and marked 4 black points on here though by putting the board down, and those are the points where I'm going to need to drill holes so that this mounts cleanly. There's like nowhere on here where these mount, unfortunately, without needing to do that, so I will have to drill some more holes. It's not like I'm really changing this thing. It had a lot of extra mounting holes in here, so it's kind of like that already. All right, and with that, we have a mount. Now, I was going to show you putting these on, but the holes didn't quite deburr as much as I thought they would, at least not as much as the one for the panel mount connector, and I put literally more blood, sweat, and tears into putting these standoffs in than I can show on YouTube, so we're going to go ahead and skip past that part and just go on to the final stage of assembly now. So there are a couple of things that I need to keep track of this, or with this though, because I want to mount this extension on the exterior, which means that I need to figure out how I'm going to route it to the outside. Now I'm thinking that, again, mounting it right here would be really convenient, so I want to try and do that, which means we have to snake it through the interior somehow. It looks like I can go around the front of the metal and then out the back. Probably can go through there, only one way. Let's see here. Yeah, so that'll fit, like, that's perfectly SD card size. It's almost a shame that I can't put the actual receptacle right there, because that would be cool to have it just go up and in, but that won't work. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I put this together. So first off, we can install this. So the mount was just ever so slightly crooked, but it really does not matter. So I'm not going to sweat that. I picked out the screws I want. I kind of already test fit them. I have these really wide head ones, and I was going to put those everywhere, but in this area, it's a little tight, so I have this, I forgot what this is called. It's not a pan head, that's the round kind. But it's the kind that goes flush, so I'm going to put that there first. I'm going to keep this loose. Because this was hand drilled, these didn't all line up quite as cleanly as I would have preferred. But it's still close enough that it'll mount in there, so. All right, that's not going nowhere. Mounted nicely on standoffs. I am extremely happy with that. Okay, now we can just plug everything in. And the stupid Burge floppy adapter on here. I guess I can wrap this around a long way to take up some of that slack. So dumb. The LEDs, I did put that little header on there so I can connect these up. I tested this before, actually. I'm assembling this just to make sure. Red does go on the left. Neither one of these are ground, so I'm not sure how this works. It might actually work both ways. I don't know. It could also be that it's a push-pull type thing, and if I put them in the other direction, it might always be on and then turn off when there's activity. I don't know. But it's weird, because neither one of those is ground. So, alright. The panel mount micro USB is a slight little annoyance, because it doesn't... I can't just plug it in, because this is too much, so I have to, like, loop it. But I guess that's not the worst thing in the world. Actually, same thing for this. Ooh, I can use that to cable manage everything. Yeah, all held down nice and clean. One thing I want to do before I button this all up is I want to take that SCSI ID selector and put it in here somewhere. There's some holes back there. Let's do this. I think that's a poly cap. Kind of goes up against that, but that's fine. Okay, that's it for that stuff. Now I just need to figure out how I want to route this. So let's take a look at it from here. So this is the bottom. So I need to make sure that, well, at least I want the label side to be out, so it needs to be there. All right, so let's say we do it that way. Fold it over and then feed it up like that. I'm going to put it here. See it nicely lining up through the grill. That should work out well. Okay. Don't know quite how I want to do this. So obviously this needs to fold over, and then that'll be perfect because that's already facing the correct direction. So I guess I just need to put this down there. Let me quickly do this. So I'm going to use double-sided foam to attach this adhesive. I should maybe attach the bottom. I don't know, because I want to manage that flat flex cable there. You know what? I'm going to use this really wide blue painter's tape just so I can redo this later if I need to. I guess I can put this in there, actually. So one thing I will do, I test fitted this. I replaced that is a pan head, the round head on their bolt with a flush one because it wasn't clearing this very well. So let's see here. Keep that folded flat. There's that installed. I guess that will just bunch up a bit. Backside, I'll have to press that in, push it down a little. It's still not super awesome, but that's fine. I think that's it. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, we're ready to start putting screws in. Okay. That's all fit. That should work. Okay, that's that installed in the bottom. Let's keep this going. Oh, yeah, that is nice. That rocks. All right, let's get the cable mounted. Okay. That's it. It's done. That's my fully external SCSI to SD with externally accessible SD card and USB interface, since I have the panel mount connector. All right, let's play around with it.
Now, initially, I was just going to plug this into the keyboard and maybe a DOS computer just to see what it was like when in use, but I ended up getting really drawn into this thing and did way more testing than I could reasonably include in one video. This video with all of that testing was over an hour originally. I cut off that back half and put it up on the second channel if you want to watch it though, and in that I go through and test it on my keyboard, a DOS computer, and try out CD-ROM emulation, which I didn't even know this thing could do when I bought it. I was so impressed by it that I'm actually going to be re-recording all of that as a more concise how-to and demonstration thing that will be part 2 on this channel. So if you want an early look at all of that and to get some more raw experience with it, you can head over to the second channel and see all that. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this look at building an external enclosure for the SCSI2SD, and it did work flawlessly. If you want to support the channel, I am on Patreon, but for now, that's it, and I'll see you next time.